Greetings, Neuse Little Pod listeners. This is your host, Matt Gore, reminding you to please like, follow, subscribe, and share the podcast on your available podcast apps such as Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube, iHeartRadio, and any other podcast app you can think of. Share our episodes on Facebook and let us know what you think with a comment or review. Now, please enjoy the show. Hello, and welcome to Neuse Little Podcast, an audio program discussing the almost 50-year history of Neuse Little Theatre and the backstage antics and stories that come along with running a community theater in a small town. I'm your host, Matt Gore, and we are coming to you from NLT's stage and base of operations, the little log cabin located on the banks of the Neuse River in Smithfield, North Carolina. We lovingly refer to it as the Hut. So Keith Davis sent me this, and I wanted to get your guys' take on it. Play canceled after actor breaks character to fight an audience member. Now, this was on Instagram, and the person said, I just looked this up, and it turned out it was a production of Cat on a Hot Tin Roof, a play which famously features a closeted gay lead character. A member of the audience was catcalling female actresses and shouting homophobic abuse when actor John Lacey, who played the character Big Daddy, paused his performance and called him out. The heckler replied, "What are you going to do about it?" To which Lacey responded by leaping down into the audience and knocking them to the ground. Hashtag, it's what Tennessee Williams would have wanted. And I believe that. So I thought that was hilarious because I'm just now picturing Darius doing that.
Oh, he'd love to do that.
Yeah, he definitely would do that. I'm just picturing him just like stumbling through the crowd and just punching somebody in the face. That's catcalling everybody.
What was it? Someone told me there's like a really famous one during Iceman Cometh or something years ago, like 2 decades ago or something. But somebody's phone rang in the middle, and they just stopped everything and said, wait. You want to answer that?
Mm-hmm.
Get out.
Yeah.
And just like embarrass the guy horribly.
That's what should happen. All right. Welcome to Neuse Little Podcast here, folks. I am your host, Matt Gore, and today we are going to do a wrap-up about the Explorers Club. Now, the Explorers Club has been put to bed. We had our last show on November 20th. We had a great run, and we wanted to get Greg in here to talk about the props, the set, and all the little secret stuff that we really couldn't talk about before the show premiered that we, tried our best to keep secret for the people, the paying audience, as it were. But now it's over and we can talk about everything. So thank you for being here, Greg.
Oh, well, thanks for having me, Mike.
Did you just call me Mike?
I think I did. I don't know. I don't know.
It's all right.
Let's start over. Take 2.
Thanks for being here, Greg.
Thanks for having me, Mike. Matt.
All right.
It's only funny if we keep the first one in, too.
Now, and we got Meta here also. So.
Yes, I'm always here.
So let's start at the very beginning. Now, how did you stumble across the Explorers Club script? How did it first enter? Because you were the first one that knew about it.
Me?
Yeah.
Yeah. Actually, what happened is the Kernersville Theater up near Winston-Salem posted something on Facebook about how they were going to do it, and they posted a video that you can find on YouTube of the Manhattan Club, Manhattan Theater Club, I think is who they are, and it's their scenes and stuff, and I went, that looks really interesting. And so I went and got the script and pulled it, and I was like, we can do this. This looks really cool.
Yeah, and we started talking about it, and we had decided to do it. I think it was already on the season, but we kind of wanted to see it done somewhere, and there was a place in Burlington that had done that, but we couldn't make it for that one. But there was also a place way down there in Wilmington that was also
Burlington. It was Burlington's the one that I saw on Facebook, yeah, because that makes sense, because they were doing to do it. Pretty sure that's who that was.
Yeah, west of Raleigh.
Yeah.
But then down there in Wilmington with Big Tall Productions, you snagged us tickets, and then we all, Greg, Steven, Meta, and I took a little road trip down to Wilmington, North Carolina. And before we get to the actual show, I got to talk about the Denny's waitress that We stopped at a Denny's to eat.
I've blocked a lot of this out. I think I remember the Denny's. I think I vaguely remember the waitress. I do not remember the giant fight. I guess it wasn't really.
It didn't quite get to the fight, but man, it was tense there for a couple of minutes. We stopped at 8 at Denny's before the show. It was a very nice Denny's. It was Denny's with a bar.
Yeah, it was weird.
And so there was not many people there, and we ordered our food, and the waitress asked Steven how his meal was, and it kind of started out with, "It's fine," and she's like, "It's just fine? It's fine. Are you sure?" And then he just kind of looked at her, and he's like, "It's fine." And then this waitress kind of, when Steven gives most people the look, they're like, okay, well, this lady didn't back down. She goes like, "Well, what can I do to make it better?" Nothing. It's fine. It's chicken fried steak at Denny's. It's only going to be so good. And she just kept going and grinding, and she just kept being annoying. And what was it like for you, Greg? Because you were sitting right there.
I was just glad I got my food already. I've got a chance to know Steven up to this point. I've known him for 4 or 5 years, so I get Steven, and she just didn't get Steven.
She did not get Steven. It's what happens when an immovable object meets a speeding train. You know, it's just like which one's going to break first. And I finally had to tell him, I was like, "Listen, this is cute and all, but this is bad for my digestion. Could y'all like squash this?" And I remember us just like getting out of there. I was just like, she was a persistent waitress. She was very persistent, and fastidious is the word.
What people fail to understand where Steven's concerned is he's the sweetest person you'll ever meet, and he would give you the shirt off his back, and he will do whatever he can to help you out. But once he digs in his heels, don't keep at him. Just let it go. It's fine. It's just like, don't.
That's why he won't be on the podcast.
Yes, partly because we keep asking him to be on the podcast.
I had the temerity to ask him.
Well, no, and I think he's not going to hear this, so it's fine because he doesn't listen to it either. But I thought I had him almost convinced, and then we asked one more time, and then he's just basically no. So I think if he sees it as a challenge that he can put it off as long as humanly possible, if he can win, kind of a thing. It's like a game for him. But he also has resting asshole face. So the problem is you combine those two things, and
well, it's a podcast, so that'll be fine.
A complete and utter jerk when you're when you're dealing with people.
So we left the Denny's battleground, and we went down to downtown Wilmington, and a not so great part of downtown Wilmington. But I got to hand it to Big Dog Productions. I've said it before; they did a great job. It was a little small theater, and they really rocked it. But we also took a few notes and thought about our production and how we could maybe improve on it. It's a show with a lot of moving parts. So let's get into the set. We knew from the outset that we really needed elephant tusk. That was like a big thing. They had to go around the bar.
That was the first thing I said. I said when we were talking about doing the show, I said I would love to have elephant tusks. And Greg jumped on that like a dog with a bone.
Well, I just, as soon as you said it, I knew. I was like, oh, I know I can do that. And I think I made the little practice one first. And I actually brought it with us down to Wilmington. And I said, here, I've already made this, and just so we could get an idea of how it worked.
I had forgotten that. Yes, yeah. You did. How did you make them?
Well, being community theater, we have to keep things as cheap as possible. So I went to Lowe's, and I kind of knew right away. I said, elephant tusk is cylinder shape. And went to Lowe's and asked them if I could have one of their carpet rolls off of the back wall, and where they cut carpet by the yards for people, and they just throw those tubes away, and I took them home and sliced them down the center, put a bevel in them, and rolled it back around until I finally had the shape, and bondoed and whatever else. Had to get it to the final point. So it was a challenge. The biggest challenge was making them as close as possible. There is deviations, and Meta knows about my one deviation that I don't know how I got a straight part in the tusk, but there is a straight part.
Well, Well, elephant tusks are not identical.
Yeah.
And it made me feel better.
Just like fingernails and teeth, none of them are exactly the same and symmetrical, so it's all good.
So, and that was probably the biggest challenge with the tusk, was just making sure that it looked like they came off the same elephant.
Mm-hmm.
And getting them to stand up, because, they're crescent moon shape, and, that really throws off center of gravity a lot. So that was a real big challenge,
Yeah.
And in the bottom side, I poured some concrete, just about 6-8 inches high inside of them, just to give it a lower center of gravity.
Yeah, and they didn't go all the way to the floor. If you just look at it on stage, it gives the perception that they did, but they actually don't.
They don't, but they're still pretty big.
No, they're the right size. Excuse me, they're the right size for the for an actual elephant tusk, but they kind of hang on the edge of the bar a little bit.
Yep.
So let's move now. Was it always going to be a rhino head? Because we had.
Well, that Meta, after I finished the tusk, Meta, we were talking about a stuffed animal. I kind of called a few taxidermies to see if we could find something.
Mm-hmm. We had this Monty the Rhino, this big rhino's head that was mounted over the passage of the Explorers Club, and it was a big focal point. Everybody wanted to look at that rhino. I even had some, after we put a picture online, I had some offers to buy that rhino.
It's going to Mississippi.
Yep. That's why I told him, I was like, I have no idea if the guy is going to sell it or not. So I didn't think you were. But how did you make that Monty for us?
Well, Meta had just mentioned one day, we were talking about the stuff, and she's like, I'd really like a rhino head. I was like, okay, let's do it, And that was really jumping into one of those, and you're like, how am I going to do that? Most things you can kind of go with a shape, triangle, rectangle, circle, cylinder, pyramid, but a rhino head is just a rhino head. So you can't really deviate or play with it too much. And it took a lot of brainstorming, and I found something on eBay called cardboard safari cutout, I think is what it was called. And there was a rhino, and it was where these interlocking pieces of cardboard all came together, and it made a 3D shape of a rhino. Well, it was only 8 inches long, so I had to figure out, how am I going to make this bigger, And I ended up having to go get a projector. And old school projector in school with the little swivel novel, go up and down and all that stuff, and built a vertical table in my shed. That way I could slide a piece of plywood all around, and just kind of got the projector in a position where I said, okay, everything's got to be this size, and just started tracing everything out at a larger size and just started running with it.
I had no idea. That's fascinating, actually. So it's like it's basically like a puzzle that you're figuring out.
Practically.
Yeah. Interesting. And after that, it's just like paper mache, right?
I filled up the crevices with expanding foam just to go ahead and I took a hacksaw blade, and because it's flexible, and kind of sawed them off, and then I put some paper mache, and that was just to kind of smooth out the ripples that you would see on each rib of the interlocking wood, and then I put a sheet of fiberglass around it. And the only reason I went with the fiberglass is because I was going to put fabric, and I found some elephant hide type fabric over at one of the fabric stores in Cary, and but I knew I couldn't glue that to the paper mache, so it would just rip it off.
Well, it looks great. I mean, and you even the eyes really are the final touch that really sells it. Is you went and got the real eyes from the taxidermist and all that?
No, those eyes actually came. It was Stephanie had actually brought some eyes over to me, but they weren't quite big enough. And it was close to Valentine's Day, and it was like a day after Valentine's Day. So I ran down to Walmart's because I knew they were going to sell all their stuffed animals for about $1 a piece, and I just found one with big old giant eyes, and bought, I think it was $3.
Man,
Cut his eyes
So
out.
you went all serial killer.
I did. I'll bring him. He was a little alligator. He's in my shed still.
So you
Missing eyes.
have this eyeless alligator.
you took my eyes, Greg. You took my eyes.
Nice.
All right. So we have Monty the Rhino and the elephant tusk, and the next big interesting piece is the sarcophagus, the Egyptian sarcophagus. Now, when I told the cast that we're going to have an Egyptian sarcophagus, I don't think they believed me. I really don't think they believed me. They're like, okay. And
or it was going to be some horribly knockoff, like we had. I mean, when we did Man Who Came to Dinner, we had to go looking for a sarcophagus. Yours was so much prettier than what we found, but we had to put a body in that one. So.
Yeah, I wanted Keith, the Irish assassin. There's an Irish assassin in Act 2 that comes on stage all of a sudden out of nowhere and gets killed immediately. And I was just like, oh, I wish we could get Keith Davis to get his spindly Ichabod Crane body in there, just like shove him in there and let him pop out of it when it's time. But there was just not enough room. But believe it or not, there was a dead person inside the sarcophagus.
There was a dead person in the sarcophagus.
We didn't tell the cast until the very last day that they put Doris Cannon's ashes inside the sarcophagus. That was your idea, wasn't it, Meta?
No, actually, you asked me. Sean said,
Oh,
can
yeah.
we put Doris on stage?
It was Sean's idea. You're right.
He wanted to put Doris on stage. Her daughter Beth gave us some of her ashes to keep here at the theater because she was such a big part of Neuse Little Theater, Miss Doris Cannon. And you texted me and said, Sean says we should put Doris on stage. And I was like, okay. And you were like, well, I think he's joking. So I made the offhanded comment to Stephen that context conversation. And he said, we could do that if you want. Let's put her in the sarcophagus. I was like, yeah. And then we decided we weren't going to tell anybody until it was all over with.
Interesting.
So Doris made a cameo, sort of, in the show.
Let's not get ahead of ourselves, though. Tell me where you got the sarcophagus, Greg, because you didn't build that.
No, I did not. Now I do want to try to make a mold off of that. That way I can make my own. Mm-hmm. But that was just me on the internet, just searching around for random off-ball stuff, just random stuff. And I was on Marketplace, and I don't know how we came up with sarcophagus, but I started looking up sarcophaguses. And it's a bookshelf sarcophagus. You actually, I remember in the 90s, Sky Mall magazines on airplanes, they actually had these listed in there. And so I reached out to the lady, and she wanted a pretty good penny for it. And I kind of told her what it was for, how far I was coming, because it was all the way in Virginia. Mm-hmm. And it was not across the state line. It was up into the state, up in the mountains. And talked to media again. I said, do you think that would look good? And we were definitely crossing our T's and I's. And so I jumped on it. I said, you know what? Worst case scenario, I want it anyways. And so I called my buddy Joe. And I said, Joe, you want to take a ride? And we took off to Virginia. And we got to this lady's house, and it was like walking into a museum. Mm-hmm. Her and her husband was in the middle of a divorce, and she wasn't very happy with him, and she was selling everything off. And
you were like, good.
Yes.
Excellent.
Excellent, Mr. Smithers.
Trying to get rid of this, are you?
And if she had told me that beforehand, I would have brought a trailer.
Right.
But that's where I got the family from, the cat, mm-hmm. and the sarcophagus.
The family was a family of tribesmen that were made out of wood, and they set up on the stairs up top.
They're like fertility totems or something, yeah. So.
And we actually still have them sitting over there with trash bags on their heads.
They're fairly creepy. They are not creepy, but they were a great addition up there. They wobbled a time or two, but they were great on their little second floor balcony, the lounge, as it were. Well, let's finish up on a sarcophagus before we get to the second floor.
Okay. I just went up there and, we just rode on back. I think it was about 6 hours there, 6.5 hours.
So you negotiated the price a little bit lower?
I did. Mm-hmm. Yep. And she threw in the family and the cat for an extra 100. So
gotcha.
Like, awesome. This is going to go great.
That's the cat that one night during the show fell over. Quick side tangent. There was one night, I think it was Saturday night, and Reggie was leading Sean off stage, and Randy was racing to get the door, and I heard this loud bang, and I knew Rich was about to go on. I was just like, what the hell was that? And I was like, I hope Reggie didn't trip or Sean didn't trip or something backstage. And Randy just had this face of like, oh, shit. And I could tell in his face, was like, I don't know if Rich is going to be laid out on the other side of this door But let's all find out together, folks. And luckily enough, Rich walked through the door, and it was the cat that had just bam. It was just it had made a very loud noise.
It was sort of in a weird spot anyway, but it was where we put it, and I was surprised it had lasted pretty much a week where it was. It hadn't fallen over. We just sort of, we just sat it there, thinking we're going to figure out where we're going to put it permanently, and then it just stayed there. But they had a little scuffle over there or something and ran into it, and it fell over, and I was like, wow.
I had told the cast that the sarcophagus we couldn't fit it on stage, and it would probably be outside for people to take pictures with or something like that. And in the very beginning of rehearsal, and then smashed to about 2 weeks before, and I was like, and I'd mentioned oh, that's where the sarcophagus is going to go, and Disney Dave was like, I thought you said it was going to be outside for the people to take pictures. I was like, Dave, that idea is so 4 weeks ago, man, way ahead of you here. Because
well, we were afraid we were going to have too much stuff for the stage, and it turns out we didn't. It filled it up, but we could have had some more stuff probably, and filled in the gaps,
but it was beautiful. We had a second floor, and we've had stairs before, but we've never had a curved staircase, have we?
Not really. I mean, this was exactly what I had in my head. It was supposed to be more of a curve, but this was sort of a.
You were thinking a spiral, weren't you?
Yeah. Well, not really a spiral because it goes round and round, but it was more of one of those grand curved staircases. This was more of a kind of went up and sort of made a slight curve and then went up and then made a turn. But it worked for the space. We just don't have the space to make something out of Gone with the Wind or whatever.
Everybody wanted to see what was actually behind the door, and I was just like, there's nothing special. It's literally a stool with a wall enclosure.
They're like, what's upstairs? I'm like, you do realize this is a play.
It's a play. There ain't no upstairs.
Upstairs is a platform with a stool for some people to sit on until they come back downstairs.
Well, that's when you know you're doing a good job. Because now the people are sitting there go, oh, she must be doing her little thing while they're doing their next part. You know?
Yeah, I mean, well, if you're not familiar with it, and you're just looking at it for the first time, you can be like, whoa, what is going on up there? Nothing. She's waiting for her next cue.
It's a whole tea set, and she's up there staring at the wall.
No, she's got stuffed animals, since there's no other women. Like, tea for you, Mr. Tuttles. But the set as a whole was beautiful, and it was mostly because we just had this idea going, and I say we. I decided from the pretty early in that Meta was going to take the lead on the show and design the set, while I took care of the blocking and the actors portion of things, and then Greg would pepper in with the props and stuff like that. Now, did the set come out the way you wanted it to? I mean, what percentage, 100% being completely satisfied with everything that happened? How close did we get?
It was 95%, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, and I say that because I look at it now and go, oh, I probably wouldn't change anything now, but what was in my head originally to what we got, I understand, having been with this theater and directing and designing sets and stuff for as long as I have. Compromises are made specifically because once you get into the space, you're like, okay, fine, we can't do that, or time constraints or stuff like that. So, but no, I mean, Stephen did an amazing job giving me almost exactly what I put on paper. So.
Yeah, you convinced him to redo the flats, which was big.
Yes.
Well, and that was one of those two birds with one stone.
We never had a disagreement. I didn't ever have a disagreement with you guys, but that was the only thing that there was a little bit of back and forth on, was redoing those flats.
Well, Stephen had been talking about for a couple years about reskinning the flats, because we have 20 years of paint. You do 5 shows, 20 times 5.
Not quite that much. We had new flats. 7-8 years ago.
7. Well, that's still a lot of paint, and it's heavy when you pick them up and bring them from downstairs.
Yeah, it's amazing because once he put the new luan on the flats, and we put the new stuff on and took the old painted stuff off, it took 20 pounds off of those things
or more.
It was
easily.
Crazy.
I mean, they were heavy, and that was my thought going in. I knew Stephen needed that, and so I wanted to piggyback on it and say, hey, I said, if you want to do it, I'll help you do it now. We can do this, and we can stain this first coat instead of putting paint on the walls. And, so that's my two birds with one stone. I have my little outcome that I want. I wanted to stain these walls.
Right.
And I knew he needed new flats. So it just had to take some convincing. And, we worked really hard on that for the first 2 weekends.
That was the first 2 weekends was just redoing the flats.
Redoing all the flats, getting them ready. And we were bringing them in as we were finishing them, putting them up.
We had an ambitious schedule for the set. We were working on it right up until the preview night. Just those little things, those little details and stuff. We tried to do every little detail we could think of. There were things in the script that got called for that got cut, but we tried to do them. Like the snow, there was supposed to be some snow when Randy makes his big entrance, and it just wasn't working. And the snowshoes were tripping him up because the space wasn't. And I was just like, cut it. But nobody can say we didn't attempt it.
Well, I never intended for him to wear the snowshoes, but I was like, whatever you want to do with them, that's fine.
I guess the idea is he's come from Antarctica at that moment. Like he's come straight from
Right.
the boat.
I always intended him to be carrying a canvas backpack, and the snowshoes would be tied to the backpack. I didn't think you were going to actually make him wear the shoes, but that's fine. There was a blank spot on the wall, and when you decided to cut them, I looked at Steven and said, they go on the wall. He said, that was my thought. I said, good. So that's what happened to him. So.
And you made some snow out of what, Greg?
That was baking soda and hair conditioner.
It smelled good.
It smelled real good.
It smelled a lot, too. It was very powerful.
It was very powerful. I was shocked at how powerful it was.
There's something, now you mentioned earlier in our conversation that there was nothing really that got broken except for one item, and that was one of your antique chairs didn't quite make the show.
No, we broke an ashtray, too.
Oh, yeah.
That thing at the floor went flying across.
Is that what went flying that night?
Yeah.
Okay, that makes sense.
It was that white and red ashtray from downstairs, and everybody's like, "Oh, we broke the ashtray." I was like, "I don't care about the ashtray," but yeah, no, and I'm not sure about the chair, how bad it is, but I'm on the lookout. If anybody has any Victorian parlor chairs for sale, let me know. But no, I knew I had forgotten it. But I knew I have not sat in those chairs in my living room. Well, after I bought them from Darius Rose when they moved. And he tried to talk me out of that set. He said, I have another set that are better. He said, they're sturdier. You want those? I said, no, I don't like those. They were beige. I wanted the red ones. And he told me, he says, don't sit in them a lot. And then we put poor David on it, up and down, up and down, up and down.
Now
it got more use in the week and a half that we had it on stage than it ever got at my house for the 3 years I've had them.
He was not happy when he broke that chair. He was very sad. He was just like, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry I broke the chair. I was like, Dave, it's okay. We're going to fix it, number one. Number two, that chair was meant to sit in a corner of a room for 50 years and maybe sat on 4 times. Not 100 times in 6 weeks, which is what we've been doing, where you've been up and down, up and down. It's good. It's fine. It's going to happen.
And I mean, he wasn't the only one to sit on it either. So, But no, it's just, they told me, it's like, he felt so bad about that chair. And I was like, I said, of all the things, it's like, if... I learned this a long time ago, and just know this, if you ever loan us anything, we will do our best to keep it in nice order and keep it safe and not hurt it and try and keep it in the condition in which you let us borrow it. But don't let us borrow anything that is a family heirloom, that is irreplaceable, that you don't, that it will devastate you if it gets broken, because we can't guarantee it. Mm-hmm. I mean, it is a play, and you've got people on stage. Keep it at home. So I knew that going in. I knew when I brought it up here, I was like, it is what it is. So
now the big centerpiece in the second act that usually makes everybody sit up in their seats is the glass throwing. We have this big bar where Luigi doesn't know how to serve glass drinks in the traditional way. He's only seen it when somebody's thrown it off the edge of a table. So naturally, he takes all the glasses and throws them, and then all the explorers, fingers crossed, catches them. So let's get into that. Let's get into the bar first. So
that's the other stuff we broke.
Yeah. No, it's amazing we didn't break more.
Show, yeah.
It's amazing we didn't break more during the show besides those glasses, the chair, and then David's kneecap.
Right. It was me. I caught it a lot.
Because BB had the farthest throw and he was right next to BB. Anyways, let's get into the bar. Get into the bar and how you did the bar, Greg, because it was a beautiful little piece.
The bar was just,
At least the top of it,
the top of it, I wanted to at least match what we had done here on the walls to make it look similar. And, it was just building a bar. I put up some crown molding around the edges, stained it, and put a good, nice, clear coat on it. That way they would slide. And that was about all there was to the bar. Not too much.
So what about the glasses? Those glasses were trial and error. Was that the hardest thing to do?
The glasses, they were a little challenging because we definitely got to that one hiccup when we didn't know. You start, Meta.
Like what? We had a hard time coming up with what was going to be put on top.
Because let's tell them what it is. It's basically the glass has to be thrown, and so you're going to have to put something on top to keep the liquid from splashing out because we want the liquid in it to make it look like an actual drink.
Right.
So it had to be some type of plastic, or what did we come up with?
Well, the key was to put it as close to the top as you can so that they look like when they're drinking out of it, it looks like they're drinking. Because if you put it low at the bottom, when you turn it up to drink out of it, you can see where it stops. So it had to be close to the top, but it couldn't be all the way at the top because then you could see it. So it had to be slightly below the lip of the glass. And then we had to figure out, thank God you guys talked me into acrylic glasses because I was adamant that we use glass glasses. They would have never made it.
Oh, God. Someone would have gotten cut. I had forgotten about that.
But we were trying to find, in the beginning, I wanted to use something that had sort of a concave shape to it so that it was almost like those trick glasses where you could turn them to the side and they would go all the way to the lip, but they would never...
Kind of like the little baby bottles.
Kind of, yeah. So,
baby bottles.
I mean, they didn't disappear, like the disappearing bottles and stuff, but it gave that illusion where it came all the way to the lip of the glass and it would sort of concave in, so it gave that the illusion that there was nothing at the top, so it didn't look like it had a lid on it. But I could never find anything that worked. It never looked right. And then
well, that was probably the hardest part about that because you're taking two items and you're saying, okay, I need to take this, and you got to just kind of hope it works a little bit. And if something's too big, it's too big. Because when you start messing with acrylic, and you start cutting on it, you got to be a little careful.
Yeah, and then Greg found some acrylic and cut a circle and figured out how to make that happen on one. And it worked okay, I think.
Yeah.
And then I kept looking for what needed to work, and I found that you can find circles that they cut, laser cut, that are used for coasters or ornaments. And I mean, Alyssa made an ornament for the entire cast that's pretty much the exact same thing that we used on the top of the glasses.
I didn't think about that until just now. Yeah, you're right. She did.
But so I found those, but then the task is to find the proper size.
Yep.
Because they don't make them specifically to put inside of a glass, the acrylic glasses we chose. So we had to sort of hem and haw and figure it out.
Very Frankenstein.
Yeah.
Just kind of slapped together.
It really was.
So we had
trial and
this
error.
hybrid glass that we designed with the gold trim to make it look the plastic piece not so obvious. And did it come out the way you want? I want you guys' perspective. Did it come out the way you wanted it to?
I was fine with it.
Oh yeah. It's not exactly what I had planned, but I think it's
served its purpose.
Yeah, functional. So.
How do you feel about the glass catching in general? Because we worked hard on the glass catching. We had 3 Saturday rehearsals that were 2 hours long, and we just caught glasses. And they only dropped we had the Sunday show, the matinee, they didn't drop any, and then the Friday and Saturday show, they didn't drop any. And we had one drop each the one before. And it's a hard thing to do because there's no way to fake this. It's really got to be choreographed like a dance, and it's got to be fight called every night. So from your perspective, how did it turn out for you?
I was worried about it because I wasn't really sure. Because I know you changed it up because in the script Lucius catches all of them the first time they're caught, and I really sort of, it bugged me, but now that I've seen the show, I'm like, yeah.
It bugged you. It bugged you that I changed it.
Yeah.
Honestly, that's interesting that you say that, because if I had to do it all over again, I'd have Dylan catch every glass.
So I think it makes more sense story-wise that way, but I think it puts a lot of pressure on him.
Yeah.
So
I didn't know how good of a catcher he was, because it's not like during the casting process. I kind of wanted to be honest, but it's not like during the casting process you can just like toss somebody a glass and see how good they catch it. You got to kind of like hope.
You're supposed to use a wrench. It's
Yeah.
just a flick wrench.
You can dodge a wrench, you can dodge a ball. If you can catch a hockey puck, you can catch a glass. Because that's what I threatened to do in the beginning, just have 2 hockey pucks taped together. But Greg luckily had us a suitable practice glass. But yeah, if I had it to do all over again and I saw how good of a catcher Dylan was, I would have had him catch every glass. So that's interesting but it does. It looks good in the beginning because it catches everybody off guard.
Right.
There's small lead up to it, but you don't think that that's what's going to happen. From your perspective, Greg, how did it look?
I thought it was awesome. I thought it was. I mean, that's why we had to put the little lids on the top, because we actually had liquor in all the glasses, and even if they didn't fall, liquor would go everywhere, and that's why we had them the little clear pieces on top. Mm-hmm. But
we experimented with unsweet tea, but it got moldy pretty quick.
It did.
Was it mold or was it? Just,
I don't know what. I don't know
weird?
if it was the acrylic weld that I used to put it all together and it leaked down in there, or.
Well, and the other thing is, the thing with tea, and the reason why I'm glad we decided to use liquor, is tea foams when you shake it up. And so liquor does not do that. So it didn't have that weird foaminess to it. So.
Quick tea story. My dear Andre, he plays Cope, and Cope at one point gets drunk, and he has to like take a huge swig from this decanter of brandy. And Andre, because of his religious beliefs, cannot have any type of caffeine or any type of stimulant, as it were. So I went out and got some decaffeinated, unsweetened iced tea for him to drink. And I went before. I caught him coming up to the hut, and I said, "Don't worry, Andre. I got some decaffeinated, unsweetened tea for you in that decanter, so you can drink it." He's like, "Oh, thanks, man. Appreciate it. And I was like, "No problem." And then cut to 7:45, and this is tech week, so everybody's downstairs, or supposed to be, and I just see Andre coming up through and I could tell he was like wrestling with something. He was like really upset about something. I could tell by his face, and I was like, "Andre, what's wrong, buddy?" And I was like, "You're supposed to be backstage." He's like, I know, I'm sorry. I don't want to be a diva, man. I can't drink that tea. I was like, "But it's unsweetened and decaffeinated." He's like, it's the tea leaves. I was like, "The tea leaves?" He's like, "It's black tea, right?" I was like, "Yeah." He's like, "Yeah, I can't drink it as the tea." I was like, "Okay, bring something you can drink." So he brought some type of juice that he could drink, and I was like, I made a special trip to the store for that tea.
No, it's just when he did it, I was like, huh. I'm always fascinated by religions because I grew up in a religion that had a dietary restrictions. I'm always fascinated by other religions' dietary restrictions.
No, and I would have done anything for Andre at that point, because he had been such an amazing cast member and such an amazing actor up until that point, especially it being his first show. He was such a team player, and I have zero problem with that. But I thought surely that I had my bases covered, but apparently not. But Andre's great. Would work with him anytime. He came up to me at Strike and was like, he was like, "I heard you guys on the last podcast. Do you guys think I'm not playing a character?" I was like, "No, I kind of knew you were acting, but I wasn't 100% sure. But I was 100% sure that I did not want to mess with it, so I just didn't say anything."
He's so sweet.
All right, now the set's taken down. It's the stage is bare right now, and it's the first time that we haven't had a set on here in like 2.5 years.
Pretty much, because for one, it was for a year and a half. It was the same set, but yeah.
Yeah. We've got The Outsiders coming up. Auditions for that are in the middle of December. You can. December
13th and 15th.
Yes.
Is it 15th?
Yeah, because Tony has a thing on the 14th.
Okay.
Our own Tony Pinner is directing that one, and there's been a lot of interest in that one. That one's very recognizable. Every time someone looks at our season poster out there, they're like, "Oh, The Outsiders! I know that one."
I have been mentioning it to every young person that walks by the theater, my nephew, that I come across and say, it's a good show. Go audition.
Well,
And he is requiring vaccinations. So email him if you have any questions about that, because I'm not sure, since the vaccine's out for young people, fairly new, under the age of 16, under 12, I don't remember anymore.
13 up. It's been out a little bit for them.
Oh, okay.
It's 12 and under. 5 to 12.
Because I asked, I wasn't sure,
That's
because
most recent.
there's, the vaccine for the younger crowd's a little fuzzier, but.
Yeah. I'd say it was about 2.5 weeks ago was when it was approved.
Yeah, so give him an email if you have any questions about all that. So.
yep. What do you think, Greg? Just sitting here at the end of it, it's done, it's put to bed. What are your thoughts? Whatever comes to your mind.
I'm thinking about all the Easter eggs. You
Yeah.
know?
The Easter eggs are little references to movies that we put on the set. Some examples are the fertility idol from Raiders of the Lost Ark. That's the idol that Indiana Jones finds and runs and escapes from the big rock with that in his hand.
Yep. Alfred Molina.
Alfred Molina.
Throw me the idol.
You throw me the idol, I throw you the whip.
Yeah, in which I cannot wait for Spider-Man coming out
God,
soon.
you and my
I
brother.
love Alfred Molina as Dr.
If my brother doesn't
Octavius.
shut the up about freaking Spider-Man.
I haven't been this hyped over a Spider-Man movie in quite some time. As soon as they said Alfred Molina was coming, Dr. Octavius is my favorite Marvel villain. I love Doc Ock. And he was just, this is just good. It's just like, I'm just excited.
No, I like those movies as well, but oh my God, if I just been hearing so much about this freaking Spider-Man movie. So, Mita, what are your thoughts on the new Spider-Man movie?
Well, I can say that anybody who missed it, you missed a good show.
Oh yeah.
It's easily one of the best shows I've done. I always say I need a full year just to readjust and see where it really ranks in the shows I've directed, but it'll be up there for sure. The cast was wonderful. Everybody got along. There was no drama.
That's always nice.
Yeah, it was how it was supposed to be. It's just that it was a good group of people who were genuinely sorry to see each other go.
Despite the whining and complaining by the blue area about how cold it was.
I knew that was going to happen too. I knew it was going to.
Whiny baby. Suck it up.
And I had Nicole trying to get him that paint on and on time. By the end they were about done with the paint. I could tell they kind of had enough of the paint. Like, okay.
I went downstairs to between the shows, between the weekends of the shows, to let the fire department have a look around downstairs. And I walked downstairs and I was like, what is on the, oh crap, Sean. There's paint all over the floor where he stands and they paint him. I was like, y'all better clean that crap up. It's like the floor was blue.
When we struck the set and put all the flats away and swept up, all that was left on stage was just this little hint of blue behind the bar where Sean has to bow to the queen. That's all that was left. But I wouldn't have had it any other way. I wouldn't have done anything different, I don't think.
No, and I don't know if we had done it pre-pandemic, I don't know that you would have had the cast you had.
No, you wouldn't have.
That's true. That's true. I was very lucky to get a bunch of guys that were very competent. I didn't have to hold anybody's hand. I didn't even Andre. It was Andre's first show ever, so I thought there might be a little bit more work involved with helping Andre where he needed to get to, and not really.
I got the impression that the rest of the cast helped him out a lot. I know
Yeah.
Steven was like teaching him stage terms one night.
Mm-hmm. But and that's what you have to do. You have to. It's a team. You have to help. You have to help out a team member when they need help. And also, there was a lot of good There was a lot of good spirited competition, and I knew that would happen because usually when you get a bunch of guys together, there's going to be competition. Especially when there's throwing of glasses and, like, oh, let's see who can catch the most. Let's see who can never get a drop, that type of thing. and one of the cast members was really quick in learning their lines. And I was like, excellent. Because now the other people are like, oh man, I need to study up and get off my lines. And that's exactly what happened. I don't think I usually set an unrealistic off book date, like 3 weeks in, that I know is a little bit too ambitious, but I think it'll make them work a little bit harder. So that's why I set it a little bit close when we have a 6-week schedule.
That's the most important thing about doing a show, though, is get off that book.
They're the first cast to ever hit that 3-week mark, and except for like the people who had the brunt of the dialogue, everybody was off book, and I was very impressed.
Well, and once that first person gets off book, you'd be amazed how fast everybody's like, well, crap, I better get off book too.
Pressure's on.
I've also learned that apparently Sean can learn all of his lines fairly early if you give him a completely different language to learn.
Sean said he's never been more comfortable on stage. And I found out, I was like, really?
Half naked blue.
Half naked and blue and slinging glasses? And then I thought about it. The second act, he's really just behind the bar.
Yeah, he doesn't really move much. And it really plays to his wheelhouse just to be back there improvising random things to be doing. So he's just back there trying to entertain himself.
And people think that Sean is playing it up as Luigi. And no, that's actually him holding back. I know Sean. I've been on stage with Sean. And I know when he was holding back, he was doing exactly what I told him. And if any of the cast was ever like, oh, Luigi, I'm up there, all this dialogue, and Luigi just can like look sideways and get like a huge laugh, and I'm just dying up here. And it's just like, that's him holding back. That's him like doing like the least he can. And I know that. And I appreciate, I told Sean, I appreciate that. Like, I know you're holding back, but everybody else might not.
No, I've been in a show with Steve when he didn't hold back. Trust me. He knows how to draw attention to himself.
Ham it up.
Crazy little son of a bitch.
Well, any final thoughts, Greg, before we close it out here?
Oh, it's just glad to be a part of that show. I mean, it was fun to build everything. It gets my daughters outside helping me. I mean, so, it extends out further than just the cast in the theater. And brothers come in town, they gave me a hand. Joe stopped by, gave me a hand. And so I just want to tell them thank you, all of them.
Thank you. Thank you to Joe and Greg's siblings, because he makes some really cool stuff. And I said from the beginning I was way spoiled on this show. And I really was with the amount of help I had. Someone asked me along the way, like, would you ever direct this show again? I was just like, absolutely. If I had the same exact resources I had this time. And I just don't think that would ever happen. So I wanted to thank you guys for doing that, because I'm very proud to have my name attached to a show this good. I am. All right. For Neuse Little Podcast, we're going to sign out there, folks. Y'all have a good Thanksgiving. Bye. Credits for the show. Your host and creator is Matt Gore. That's me. My producer and editor is Meta Toole.
That's me.
Music is by Cody Walker. Please go look up Cody on Cody Walker Music on YouTube, and he's also on Cody Walker Music on Facebook as well. He's local, so and he's got a couple of albums out. Easy listening, John Denver type of guitar voice, that Cody Walker. All right. Thanks for listening. We'll talk to you later. Bye-bye.